What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another interview episode of the Dinger Dudes podcast. We are gratefully and pleasantly joined by Tony Barnette for another special interview. Tony Barnette is a former MLB player and spent time in Japan over at the NPB. So we have a lot of great questions we're going to ask him. This is going to be a great time. But Tony, first off, thank you for joining us. And how are you doing today?
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm doing great.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah, we cannot wait to get into this interview, guys. So I'll go ahead and just start off with my first question. Of course, you spent a lot of time in Japan and, of course, Major League Baseball. But before we get into all of that, just kind of, dating back to the start of your journey, your path to the MLB, it did include time at both Central Arizona College and Arizona State University. So could you kind of provide how those collegiate experiences kind of shaped you as a player and as a person?
Well, in two different places, yeah. Couldn't have been more of a stark difference in experience. Central Arizona had a lot of success, pitched out of a starter and a bullpen role. Did a lot of good things for that team. Played for Clint Myers, who is somebody that I absolutely love to death. He was a great coach. He was a great man. And then on the flip side of that, I went to Arizona State where I struggled a lot. I had a lot of issues. I don't want to say issues, but I just struggled on the field. Had like a
Right.
70 ERA my junior year. Was almost delegated to like a non-practice player going into my senior year, and just kind of worked my way back. And Pat Murphy, he's one of those guys where obviously he's had a ton of success in the pro game. As you see, he got Manager of the Year recently with Milwaukee. But in the college level, he was one of those guys that there really wasn't an in between with him. There was you either love him or I don't want to say hate him, but it was just like there was usually like two sides of the fence on that one. And me and Pat
Right.
didn't see that eye. So I had my issues in college, and obviously I probably suffered from probably being young and dumb at the same time. But luckily, I persevered, worked through it, ended up pitching really well for them. Uh, won a co-pitcher of the year that year, my senior year, along with Brett Bordas, and ended up getting drafted by the Diamondbacks in the 10th round. So there was a lot going on in those 4 years. Looking
Right.
back, like looking back, it really was like a lifetime worth of events in those 4 years.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure those are probably the longest 4 years of your life, or at least one of the, four longest years of your life. Just very draining. But, of course, that I can honestly see how those different experiences definitely kind of molded you into the player that you became at the professional level. So let's just, oh, Jackson, you good. You can
I
go
just
this way.
wanted to say very quick, I'm a Cardinals fan, so I kind of have mixed emotions about Pat Murphy. Great,
Oh,
fantastic
yeah.
manager. Unfortunately, he's the manager of the Milwaukee Brewers, but great, great, fantastic manager. I wish he was, the Cardinals manager, but unfortunately, that's not the case.
Yeah, well, yeah. Pat's a different dude, and he approaches a lot of things with a different mindset here, and kind of forge our own paths, and that's and we talk a lot about that with players, and coaches are in the same boat with that. They're trying to move upwards and onwards, and they're trying to do the right thing by themselves and their teams that they uh that they lead.
Right, right, exactly. And I guess this would be a great time to kind of transition into a very significant turn in your career because, of course, you mentioned getting drafted by the Diamondbacks, but in 2010 is when you signed with the Yakult Swallows. I hope I said that first word right. I tried my best to, get the pronunciation correct before I did this interview. But what kind of motivated you to play in Japan, and what were your first initial impressions of the NPB when you first arrived?
Money was a big factor in that. I think I joke with people, and when I talk to guys that, or got girls for that matter too, I talk to people in general about AAA baseball and what it was like, and they always kind of like look at me side eye when I say I cleared like $16,000 on my taxes that year. There I was, and
Yeah.
then all of a sudden Japan came along and they offered me about a $500,000 guaranteed. So
Whew.
that was a huge factor, obviously. They were giving me an opportunity that I wasn't going to receive from the Diamondbacks at that time.
Right.
Was to, again, like we say, onward and upward. Move up a level and to kind of face some stiffer competition because I thought I'd earned it that 2009 year. My ERA was a little inflated, but I was pitching for the first time of any. That was the first year anybody was in Reno. And now anybody that knows anything about Reno is if you have anything under a 6 ERA there, you're doing all right. And even in
Sure.
my role now as an advisor and scout for the Yakult Swallows, I if I'm in Reno, like I take it with a grain of salt, and I kind of you have to understand where you're at and what kind of action the ball is going to have off the bat there, and it just absolutely jumps and flies in just in that altitude and that atmosphere. So I thought I'd earned it. I thought I'd earned a spot at least in and again, being young and naive, I thought I'd earned a spot or earned at least an opportunity to obtain a spot and compete for one. But the Diamondbacks just didn't see it that way, and they were open. They were super honest with me when I made the move. They were like, Tony, we just don't see you in our plans right now. If you want to go to Japan and pursue that, we're not going to stop you. So they ultimately granted me my release through a negotiation between Yakult and themselves for a money exchange. And then next thing you know, I was landed in Tokyo in late January of 2010. And obviously, like you said, what were my first impressions of the NPB? And I mean, it was a whirlwind of emotions. New place, new teammates, an entire different language and culture. And I was fortunate to have a couple teammates, Aaron Guile and Jamie D'Antona, who were um, knowledgeable in where they were and were veterans at that time and were able to help steer me and answer questions for me and help get my feet wet in that regards.
Sure, and yeah, you said it. I'm sure having those mentors around you just really kind of helped you kind of, like you said, get your feet wet and kind of set a firm foundation and kind of the player you're going to be in the NPB. So let's go ahead and talk about that remarkable 2015 season you had where you broke the Swallows single season saves record. And of course, that's a very, very honorable standout achievement. So can you kind of take us through that season and what it meant to you personally and at the professional level?
I mean, that season we as a team had kind of been up and down since I'd been there. Make the playoffs, don't make the playoffs, make the playoffs, don't make the playoffs. And then we kind of came out in 2015. We had another bullpen member join us, Logan Andrusek, along with Orlando Roman, and who had been there a few years with me. And we also had some supporting members in the bullpen like Kentaro Kyuko and Akiyoshi and a couple other guys that are blanking me right now. I could go down the whole list, but the fact is we started off in that first month of the season, and I remember that first month of the season we didn't, as a bullpen, our ERA was like sub one.
Right.
We won just about every single game by like 2 or 3 runs max,
That's crazy.
and it was just something that it started off. I think I had like 12 or like 11 or 12 saves that very first month of the season. Just started out at the gate hot, um, and I don't think I surrendered a run until interleague started. And so it was just one of those things where I was throwing the baseball with velocity and command better than I ever had in my entire life. And I was confident in myself. I was being put into opportunities to succeed. And as a team, we were just rolling. The offense was hitting the offense was hitting when the defense, when the pitching was pitching, and the pitching was, pitching when the offense was hitting. It wasn't one of
Right.
those years where we were losing games like 13 to 12 or losing games 1-0. It was just we were getting leads and the bullpen was holding it. Our starting pitchers did the job and our bullpen was as locked down as any bullpen I've ever been a part of. So um, that meant the world to me at the very end of it because the guy's record that I did break was my pitching coach.
That's wow. That's crazy.
Takatsu, who's
Wow.
now he's now the manager. He pitched in the big leagues with the White Sox for Ozzie Guillen. And so like the record that I did bring, he joked in the media, after I broke it, he joked in the media saying something like, now looking back, I wish I would have used Tony a little less.
Right.
Just kind of
Right.
ribbing me a little bit about taking the record, but the whole organization was so happy for me as we pursued and we ended up winning the Central League Championship, which we hadn't done in I think 14 or 15 years. And over there, that's kind of similar to like winning the AL or the NL championship, and it's a
Right.
big deal. It's a big deal for a Japanese team to win the Central League or the Pacific League, and so we were going to the Japan series, which we ultimately lost to a juggernaut in SoftBank. But um, it was that to 2015. It was one of those years where, like everything was clicking. The team was obviously when you win, everybody's in a good mood most of the days. Everyone's getting along. We were hanging out together outside of the field, partying together on our days off, and and when business came up, like everybody knew their job and stayed in their role, and everybody performed it at such a high level that year. So I look back on 2015 very fondly. Like as a baseball player, I don't think I was. I think that was my peak performance as a baseball player in my life.
Sure, and I can completely understand that. And baseball, I've come to learn, being a fan of the sport for so long, and we've seen it, you see it in the MLB, you see it pretty much in any professional league, is when the team gets rolling, that kind of momentum can push a team far and beyond, what their expectations were. So when, and like you said, when the offense is producing the runs and the bullpen is staying, together, keeping those that lead, for the entirety of the game. It just kind of creates a rhythm that you don't, drop very easily. So I'm sure that's a moment that a season you would probably cherish for the rest of your life. For any professional player, that's just a great achievement. But I'll go ahead and throw to Jackson because I know he wants to kind of dig deep into your MLB career now.
I just wanted to say it's glad to hear a great perspective from playing overseas because
Yeah.
previous interviews we've had, most of them played in the KBO, MPB,
Oh,
Venezuela, foreign leagues like that in COVID year. So it's glad to hear a great perspective outside of that from the early 2010s.
that is
But I,
true. That is true.
I did want to talk about your post MPP career heading into the Texas Rangers when you signed with the Texas Rangers and you made your debut at the age of 32, correct?
Yes.
Now, I did want to ask because I know the average MLB player debut age nowadays is like 25, 26, 24 range. I wanted to ask you, was there, I guess, anything affect on your mental approach or side pressure debuting in the MLB at a later age?
You don't know, like, I mean, obviously, what a dream come true. Like
Mhm.
for that situation to manifest and to actually come to life when I actually kind of given up on it years ago, as a possibility. Um, it's I love the Texas Rangers. Like John Daniels and Josh Boyd. Even at the time, Thad Levine, who's now over in Minnesota, like those guys believed in me enough to give me an opportunity and sign me to a 2 year deal and throw me into the fire. At 32, I knew what I was doing. I kind of kept reminding myself, like like I've pitched in big games. In Japan, obviously not in COVID years, but in Japan, you're sitting in front of 20 to 40,000 a night. Like the
Mhm.
crowds, the third deck's already there, so there was no real like jaw dropping moment when you step onto the major league field of like, oh my god, look how huge this is. Like I'd already been there before. Now the talent level had obviously risen. This is the MLB. This is the cream of the crop. This is the penultimate. Like Jeff Bannister, my manager, he made a statement one day. He said, nobody graduates from here. Like this is it. This is the top of the line. Like the only thing after this is the Hall of Fame. And
Right.
so and other than that, there's no league after this. This is it. This is the best of the best. And so I just had to remind myself on certain days, especially early on, like like stay within yourself, be yourself, and come at these guys with the talent level and the skill set that you gained over the years, and that the team has trusted. Why they trusted me because of that skill set. So don't change who you are and just attack how uh, you know how to do. And so those are the kind of things that I had to remind myself. And and so like uh, there really wasn't any like striking moments that was like, oh my god, like what am I gonna do? It was literally just like, this is the task at hand. This is my job. I know how to show up every day and perform. And on the days that I'm not feeling too hot or feeling a little run down, arms not doing great, like I know how to perform. And you just gotta trust the stuff.
It's a good thing you had a great mental approach heading into that season and glad you got your opportunity with the Texas Rangers because my question related to the next one, very well deserved. You had a 7-3 record that 2016 season, correct?
Yeah,
Now I know you were with guys in the bullpen such as Sam Dyson, Matt Bush, and a guy we
Yeah.
previously interviewed, Chichi Gonzalez. Were
yeah.
there any? I like asking these questions because they're kind of fun questions. Did you have any pregame rituals out in Texas, or pregame meals, or postgame meals? Because I know Texas is known for their barbecue, and I know Georgia, we can get some good barbecue out here. But I wanted to know
Sure.
like
We
pregame?
had some really good like team chefs. We had some guys that put together some really good food, and I had the play. It was nice because I had the privilege of playing with you, Darvish, and
Hmm.
Yeah,
you
yeah,
was you is one of the probably you talk to anybody about that's played with you, and they'll say the same thing that he's one of the best teammates alive. He really cares about his teammates. He really cares about the guys that are around him, and he takes care of them along the way. You see how he mentors, some of the younger Japanese players and stuff that came out during the WBC. He really is all about maximizing guys' potential and helping them, feel safe and kind of secure where they're at, feeling at home. So he actually like catered in a lot of Japanese food from some of those like Dallas places. Because I mean, you go to a big city like Dallas and like anywhere in big city, they've got some of the better cuisines out there. And so
sure.
we were not short on good food that rolled through the Texas clubhouse. Um, that being said, obviously, Texas barbecue was never turned down.
Right.
But I didn't really have any pregame meals or, actually like it was probably like just a ham and cheese sandwich, because
That's fair.
sometimes in the bullpen outside of there's kind of a short window when batting practice is done that you have to get ready, get out for anthem and get out to the game. And so a lot of the times, like especially in Texas, man, like it gets hot out there, so you don't really feel like I didn't really feel like eating a lot of days. And so when it came time for me to to get some food in and get some chow down, I'm on my way out to the bullpen. So I'm like, okay, like I'm just gonna throw together a little quick ham and cheese, eat it on my way out to the pen, and hope it's set, let it settle for
Yeah.
to be ready for fifth, sixth inning and beyond. So and then outside of that, it's a lot of caffeine and energy drinks. So
Oh,
just gotta amp it up and make sure that the adrenaline's rushing when the
oh yeah.
when that phone call comes through.
Yeah, us college students know a lot about energy drinks. That's,
Oh yeah, you guys are in it
that's
right
my meal
now.
throughout the day. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Especially when you live on campus like me. We interviewed Brandon Barnes, the previous interview before this, and he told me when he was a college student or early minor leaguer at the younger age of like 20 something, he said in his words he used to slug Red Bulls daily to
I mean,
to
I mean,
Slug.
I'm kind of worried about the future as far as health concerns on what some of the energy drinks have like, the long-term effects. But you know what? In the
Yeah.
moment, there really wasn't another answer. So you just had to, get it in, get it down, and get out there and perform.
Yeah, whatever gets the job done, you worry about everything else later. But in
Yeah.
the
And
moment,
then some
it's
days,
whatever helps.
the inning goes by so quick. You're out of there in like 4 or 5 pitches. You're actually out of there by the time it actually kicks in. So then you're just like jittering and like shaking behind the dugout with your ice on,
Yeah.
like ready to go still. And you're like, oh man, like I need this thing to wear off now. I got to go to bed.
Right, right. No, I understand that, man.
not.
But oh, well, no, you asked this, Jackson. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
I was going to ask my next question. I know, Tony, you mentioned the Baseball Hall of Fame before, and I know you probably gotten this question before, but I'm very intrigued by this because it's not a question we've asked our previous interviews. But I know in 2024, a book titled "A Baseball Gaijin." I'm pronouncing that correct, right?
Yep. Yep. Gaijin. That's it. That's us.
Gaijin, Chasing a Dream to Japan and Back, written by Aaron Fishman, follows your career and rookie season surrounding the prominent Texas Rangers season you had that season. This also happens to be in the National Baseball Hall of
Yep.
Fame. Can you describe about
What?
someone going out of their way to write a book about your journey and just how it all came to be?
Hold on. Before we touch on that, what's in the National Baseball Hall of Fame?
It's well, according to this, it says that the book is in the National Baseball Hall of Fame. I don't know if that's 100% correct, but that's what it says to
I'm gonna have
this.
to fact check that because if that is, then I found my way into the hall. That's great.
Yeah. I was about to say, oddly enough, I was looking at the book and I saw the same exact thing Jackson saw. I was like, that's incredible. If that's
I
true,
mean,
that is absolutely incredible.
then hell yeah. But to go back a little bit on that, like it Aaron and I, we've known each other. Like he reached out to me back when I was in Double A in 2008. He reached out to a multitude of minor league guys. I answered back and did a couple interviews because he was doing college projects and stuff like that. And we just kind of kept in touch over the years. And when I went to Japan, he asked me if I'd write some stuff for him, and I did. Blogged a little bit for him. So and then I just kind of kept playing, and when Japan came along, he kept asking questions. He kept having more projects due, and then he started off in his professional career covering basketball and stuff like that. He was out at UC Davis, And
Oh, nice.
he and then eventually after like 2016, 2017, like he comes up with this idea. He's like, Tony, like I think I have enough stuff here. Like I think your story is intriguing and I want to write a book. I want this to be my I'm gonna attempt to be an author and I'm gonna write a book. And I was like, I don't know, man. Like, do I really deserve this? Like, I'm a middle reliever, like had some success in Japan. Like, is anybody really going to read it? And he was like, I think they're going to. And I was like, all right, well, and so I helped him out, interviewing with people that I know, getting in contact. And, like he did so much legwork and he put so much time and effort into us. And then, I had my second thoughts about it, like I said earlier, like, do I deserve this? Like, how's this going to be received kind of thing? Like, but like once I got it in my hand, it was just an absolute ultimate sense of pride. Like I got myself on the cover of a book and like the main kind of character in this story and in reading back through it, it really brought back home some things that kind of get muddled in the gray a little bit. A good teammate of mine, Jason Gurley, who penned his own book, and he said, Tony, like he was like, in my words, he was like, this is a love letter to your kids. He was like, at some point, like your kids are going to grow up and they're going to read through this and they're going to know who you are. They're going to see what you went through and they're going to see, what you did in order to reach the level that you did. And, knowing that, and like those words alone kind of brought me a lot of comfort in it. He's like, you know what? Like, I don't care if anybody else reads this. Like, there's a print copy of my story that isn't just going to come from my mouth. I can hand it to my kids or my grandkids one day and be like, you want to know who I am? Like, here it is. Like, this is what it was. Somebody wrote this. I didn't write it. Somebody wrote it about me. And even then, my dad was like I was having second guess and I was talking to my dad about it. And he just goes, well, Tony, he was like, no matter what's in there, he was like, from my end, he was like, it's important because nobody's asking to write a book about me.
It's true.
And
It's
he
true.
was just kind of like pointing out like what you've done is special. Because it's when you get into the arena of Major League Baseball, you you're sitting there amongst some of the best to ever play.
Hmm.
I'm sitting there facing guys like Albert Pujols. I've got a Adrian Beltre to my right, covering third base. Like these guys that are just absolute studs and are, walking into the Hall of Fame. They've just got, like Adrian's in there now. Albert will be in there soon. Faces guys like that. So yeah, I'm like, okay, yeah, but why would anybody care about me when I'm, playing with guys that have 3,000 hits and 700 home runs? So, but again, like it just kind of was one of those moments of coming back into yourself and realizing like the major leagues is no easy task. You did it, you followed a dream, you kept into it, and I went about it in a way that really hadn't been done very much. A lot of guys can go to Japan from the major leagues and stuff like that, but like I went straight from the minor leagues to Japan and then made it to the major leagues, which only in the history of baseball only a handful of guys have done. And so it's a special thing and it's a special book in my heart. And the forward by Don Nomura, who was tail to tail as well, from when he originally brought over Hideo Nomo. And he's just been a huge advocate for players along the way. And he really has been a strong force in opening up the highway for Japanese players to come to the States. So it's cool, man. Like honestly, having a book about yourself, it really is cool to sum it up into some very few words. It's special, and I'm just really proud of it. And to anybody that wants to read it or does read it, I hope they enjoy it. And if any kids can, like I said a long time ago, and I've always said it, like if I can inspire one kid along the way, then I've done my job.
Yeah, and going back to what you said, I was looking at the book and I wish I could refer back to the article. I can't remember what website I found it on, but there's a statement made by the author and he called it his proudest work, like the best piece of work he's ever crafted together. And I was sitting there thinking about it, just listening to your talk and what your dad said, about somebody chose, go out of your way, thought that the story that you created with all of your blogs and your just kind of the details about your journey, found it inspiring and significant enough to, craft an entire story out of it, entire book, like you said, that you can pass down to your kids, and other, kids can be inspired by it who might have the same dream as yours. And you did go on a very unique path to the Major League Baseball level. Like you said, a lot of players don't often take the route straight from, minor leagues to the Japanese Baseball League and then to the MLB. Like that's just a very unique path. But yeah, you made it happen. So, every story, is significant, like you said, when you make it to the majors. And that's kind of why we pride ourselves, having the opportunity to, take time in these interviews, because players like yourself have achieved something that a lot of guys don't often achieve, because the Major League Baseball is such a hard association to be a part of, because it takes years and years of work, and in some cases it takes a little bit of luck as well. So yeah, very inspiring story. We're glad to hear that you were able to have your side of the story put together so other people can read it and kind of take it in for themselves.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Like you said, I tell kids, like I talk to kids now, and high school kids that want to, they have dreams of getting drafted and going to the big leagues. It's like, look, like I'm not here to tell you you can't. Like I would never do that to a kid. Like
Sure.
you can create your own destiny in a lot of these facilities, but there's 750 roster spots available right now.
Yep.
And of those 750, half of them are for pitchers, for the most, obviously not exact numbers, but half of them are for pitchers, half of them for position players. Half of those are already taken up by contracted guys. The other half of those are, basically jobs for guys to lose. And
Yep.
then their rest, like maybe there's like another 50 spots available in the world, so like you got to play, you just got to go after, there's just no guarantee. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, so it's a tough game to be a part of. And I'm grateful for the opportunities I was given. And, I'm just happy to sit here and be able to talk to you guys about it today.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I guess for my final question, I do want to go back, and you've already alluded to this earlier, but just maybe provide some more insight. You retired in the year 2020 and then transitioned into baseball operations and scouting for the Yakult Swallows. So, what has that shift kind of taught you about the game from a different perspective?
I do love sitting back and watching nowadays. Like it really is fun for me to travel to cities and watch the game. And talent evaluation is not easy. Evaluating talent is one of those things that you kind of get an eye for over time. Obviously, you have analytics that can tell you everything that you kind of want to know, but there really is no analytic that can tell you a guy's grit and his determination and the way that he competes. There's no statistic for that. We can mark down all the measurables, all the things that can be quantified, but there's no quantification for heart and hustle. And so being able to sit back and watch and just try to cipher through the guys that we could potentially obtain and try to find the best ones who are looking for that opportunity to go to Japan. It's fun for me, especially in a way if I can help the team sign a player that ends up helping them win a lot of ball games. Like I take pride in that now. It's a way of giving back to a team that gave me so many opportunities to begin with. So I get to work with my boss. We call him Mike. Here in the States, Mike Okamura. He's the guy that signed me. He gets signed Aaron. He's been working in this job for the last 30 years. He worked as a Hideo Nomo's translator
Wow.
way back in the day. He's just a knowledgeable dude when it comes to baseball. And he's really good at his job. And so I also get to work alongside my old teammate and my buddy Aaron Guile. You'll see him, in the book. He was one of my mentors, and he's still a good friend of mine. And I get to work with him. So, like, and when it comes to a job, it really is one of the coolest things for me. I get to sit back, I get to hang out with my friend, get to hang out with the guy who, put trust in me years ago.
Yep.
And, just it's this family atmosphere around Yakult that, we kind of take care of our own, and we all try to keep striving towards the ultimate goal of putting together a winning baseball team.
That's great to hear. And I wanted to ask, well, relating to that, on the flip-flop side, you talked about bringing players into Japan. I wanted to ask from, well, now scouts' perspective, you see guys like Roki Sasaki, Ha-Sung Kim, and Shohei Ohtani, because I know there's a big transition from Japan to the MLB. How do these scouts and guys like, I guess, develop these players to make the transition from Japan to MLB?
Well, I mean, like the guys that you just talked about, that's easy.
Yeah.
Like guys like that. Guys like that are easy. When you talk about Roki Sasaki, you got to watch him throw one game. You're like, okay, this guy's 100th the split next. Like Shohei Ohtani. Okay, this guy's 95 to 98 with all sorts of pitches. Oh, and he hits from the left side. Cool. Next. Like it's the other guys that you kind of gotta sift through the weeds with. Guys like myself or guys even like Miles Mikolas who had success in Japan and came back. And has done nothing but be a bulldog for the Cardinals. It's guys like that you got to put a lot more work in and be like, what else does this guy have to offer? You can look at Roki Sasaki, you can look at Yamamoto, you can look at what's his name for the Cubs.
Shota Imanaga.
Yeah, you can look at Imanaga and you can be like, okay, like these guys have not met their ceiling yet. Like you see it, they're young and they're studs, and like Otani, like he hasn't met his ceiling yet as long as he stays healthy. You know what I mean? Like that's a scary part. But like those guys are
Yeah.
easy. The rest of the guys that you're like, okay, like he's kind of like a middle player. Like you don't really know if he projects physically. You don't really know like his stuff doesn't jump off the chart. But he wins everywhere he goes. He puts up numbers everywhere he goes. Like what's separating him from the other guys? And then you go get your eyes on him and you see the compete, you see the competition in him, you see the heart, you see that hustle in him. And it's stuff like that in the talent evaluating now, like we can, like I said, we can look at all the measurables, we can look at all the spin rates and exit velocities and X factors there. But unless you get eyes on a guy and you can sit there and you see whether or not he's got a lot of quit in him or not, that's something that can only be told by the eyeballs. So there's definitely players like I'm not going to sit here and throw anybody out, but like I watch players nowadays and you can sit there and be like, this guy's got all the talent in the world, but I'm not picking him for my team. I've got better options because I just see the quit in him. Like I see that he doesn't want to be there when things go wrong. And
Yeah.
like, and you don't want those guys in those key situations. So being a talent evaluator and just kind of like you said, how do you teach guys to come over to the United States and adjust? Like those guys are already pros. Those guys are already at the top, and like they've got good mentors like you, Darvish, and other guys that have been there before. Um, you know, and they kind of know what they're getting into, and they kind of get a like from Japan. If you're that stud, if you're that guy, then you probably be on the WBC and the national team. So you've already got a taste of what that big scale game is like. And even in Japan, like those big games, they're selling 50, 60,000, packed stadiums, domes, like it's loud as all get out inside those domes in big games. So they already know. And now they, like I said earlier in the conversation, they just got to come over here and trust their stuff and, stay in their lane of who they are and, adjust to the hitters.
It's again, it's
Absolutely.
glad hearing that perspective with the new. Well, I wouldn't really say new. Well, the recency with Japanese players coming over from the MLB and also hearing a player's perspective who happened to go through the same thing as well. I guess I wanted to ask for a final question in case Andrew, unless Andrew had any other final questions.
No, no, you go right ahead.
Since we have 3 minutes left, I want to ask this quick question, and I love asking these questions. You played for the Cubs, the Rangers, the Swallows. Did you have a favorite jersey or hat that you wore during your career?
The Texas Reds, man.
Oh,
I
Oh,
absolutely love the Texas Reds. Like the white pants, red
good
top,
pick.
red hat. Like nothing beats like I mean the home whites are cool too. I mean those like the big league whites are crisp.
hmm
But I just it's just like I feel like maybe like the red was like my power color because like I just felt badass strapping on the red jersey with the red hat. Like it really was like I think that one's my favorite. Like of all the jerseys I've gotten, like I've kept all of them. I think I've given away most of them. And I think like one of the only ones I've got left is the red jersey, like that like rookie year red jersey. Like I'm not handing that to anybody. That one's mine. Like in my office here, like the hat that's displayed is the red hat.
Mm.
It's and so I think that was my favorite jersey was the Texas Reds, the white and the reds.
Beautiful pick. Beautiful pick. But since Jackson finished up his last question, I guess I'll take this time to kind of close it out. Tony, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule. I know we kind of had to, work out a perfect time, but I'm glad we finally got one that worked for all of us. We can make this
You guys will
happen.
see. Kids will do that to you, man. Kids will make you run.
Oh, we
But
understand. Look,
If we
hey,
can play,
we get it. We completely
yeah,
get it. But we
we don't have
appreciate
kids.
you.
We don't have kids of our own, but
you'll
we'll
see one day. But
understand
hey,
one day.
real quick,
One day.
if you don't mind, I'm just gonna throw this up here. There's the book. Oh, right there. Baseball
Absolutely.
guys, you can get the glare off it if I can. Oh, there it is. Baseball guys in. anybody that's watching, you can find it at Amazon, Barnes and Noble, anywhere you buy your books. Check it out. We'd really appreciate it, and I hope you love it. And I really appreciate you guys having me on.
Yeah, man, I'm glad you read my mind because I was gonna ask you before we close it out where you can go get the book in case you want it. So I'm glad you went ahead and said all that. But thanks again, Tony, for joining us on this interview. It was an amazing time. We will have this posted very shortly, and we'll send out the link if you want to
This
go check it
will
out.
this will probably be up around 7:30 p.m. and I will post it on YouTube and we'll make sure to send you the link through Dinger Dudes Instagram when it's done.
Awesome. I appreciate it, guys. Keep doing what you're doing. Enjoy it. Love it. Thanks for
Absolutely,
having me.
man.
Appreciate it.
Absolutely, man. We hope you have an amazing day.
Awesome.
Thank
You too.
you.
See you guys.
Yes, sir.